Back to All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life. I'm Kris Pursiainen. With us today, a very special guest, and I'm itching to have the conversation that we brought him on the show to have. So I'm going to get right to the introductions so we can get right to the basketball discourse. Erik Ruby, host of PHNX Suns, a daily Suns show, is here to talk about Jalen Brunson and Devin Booker. Now, the reason for this, it's not out of spite. There's no pissing contest here. Just a young professional that covers Phoenix Suns basketball and a young professional that covers New York Knicks basketball, seeing where we're at, because it's the NBA offseason. It is the time of year that these discussions are. It's the best time of year to have these discussions, other than in the middle of the playoffs when everyone's agending. Erik, can you tell my 8 listeners why we're having this conversation, why this was sprung onto my timeline? Because you didn't necessarily draw as much ire as I thought you would from Knicks Twitter, who tends to be like a pack of hyenas. I more so, I think, saw people interested in having a discussion about it, at least the people that sent me your tweet, which is why I replied to it.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, we're in the offseason grind of NBA content. And then specifically when you cover one team, you got to get a little creative on how you cover things. And so we did a classic little tier last week, and we just tiered the top 15 players in the NBA and basically saying, where does Devin Booker fall in the top 15 players in the NBA? Me and my co-host disagreed on who was better, Jalen Brunson or Devin Booker. He felt Jalen Brunson. I felt Devin Booker. Now, I'm glad that you say like this isn't a pissing contest, though, because I'm not going to get mad at you if you think that right now Jalen Brunson is a better basketball player than Devin Booker because of what's happened the last season, right? And I think that Jalen Brunson is one of the best players to touch a basketball on this planet right now. I just personally believe, after watching Devin Booker and up close and personal and watching the NBA as a whole, that if I were doing like a draft in the NBA right now and I was trying to build the best team, I would take Devin Booker ahead of Jalen Brunson. And if I were the New York Knicks, I believe that they would be a better team with Devin Booker in place of Jalen Brunson. Not drastically, not like Jalen Brunson is ass. I'm not going to go out here and say that.
Yeah, we're not. Like, cannot make clear enough that in an age where discussion is as polarized and extreme as possible, we are literally just trying to feel things out. Like this is
sure. I think it's close too, and like I think that's why this is interesting, because I truly think there are genuine arguments on both sides of it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 2 of the best guards in the league right now, 2 team leaders, 2 guys that have upped their games tremendously over their career and have had a good amount of playoff success and some big playoff moments. For Jalen Brunson, it's just been a little bit more recently, which has made me feel like Devin Booker's been a little bit more forgotten in the natural discourse of NBA right now. So that's why I put it out there. It's one of those tweets where you're like, this is either going to get like 2 likes and people are going to be like, who cares? Or like you said, people are going to latch onto it. And it felt like everybody was like, duh, as in, yeah, for sure. Or people were like, what are you talking about? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
It started in your circle and it was like, duh. And then it broke containment and the hyenas surfaced. Listen, man, if you're someone from Knicks Twitter, knows me from Knicks Twitter, you know of Operation Armani, my long failed efforts to draw Devin Booker to the New York market. To be fair, that all started back when he was like kendalling around and there was, all sorts of superstar talk going on. And it was like, oh, the Suns are playing in New York, so he's staying at the Kardashian apartment. And it's like, oh, look who'd fit right in. But also there's stuff behind the scenes. Like, if you know who Devin Booker's agent used to be, you can understand why since March of 2020, when I was writing for Sports Illustrated in high school, I've been connecting Booker to the Knicks front office, because that connecting is getting, I'm not making the connection, I'm pointing it out. And that was a real thing for years and years. Now the league happens. Donovan Mitchell is still in Cleveland, right? Like, things change. Joel Embiid still in Philadelphia. I'm sure if you asked the Knicks front office 3 years ago, Is it more likely that you trade for Embiid or Mikal Bridges? They'd easily say Embiid. They'd easily say Mitchell. They'd easily, right? But Jalen Brunson's ascension kind of changed these plans. And when, people joke like, oh, the only people who thought he was going to be that good were his dad. It's like, well, maybe his godfather too, who gave him the contract. But other than that, I think that's it. And it's interesting. And I want to start here. You talked about this past season for Brunson, and you talked about the tenure that Booker has built up as a top flight scorer, playmaker, player in the NBA. And I don't know that we can say Brunson has all three of those, because playmaking is something he does well, but maybe not top flight of the whole league. Does the scoring, balance that out? Does the scoring, the 3-point volume, the 3-point efficiency, does that come into play? But we'll break that down. First, I want to get into this last season from Brunson and what that jump was. So Fred Katz with The Athletic talked a lot after Jalen Brunson's first breakout season with the Knicks about how there are tons of people within the Knicks organization that believe that he has an entire next level to reach. They think his low 3-point volume was low hanging fruit, something that cannot be easily changed, but after a full offseason of work can be adjusted enough to watch this guy level up. And if you go just look at the averages, right? Jalen Brunson last season in Dallas with the Mavericks, he took 3.2 3-pointers per game. He made 37%. We congratulate him on that achievement. 2023, first season in New York, he took 4.7 threes per game and made 41.5%. It's after that year, his second year in New York, he took 6.8 threes per game and still made 40.1%. So in my opinion, Jalen Brunson, we now have 7 full years of his NBA career to look at. And those last 3 seasons with the Knicks, do you view those as like significantly more statistically relevant than everything in Dallas? Do you write off his Dallas role as politics and he was never going to get the ball that much on a Luka team? Or do you think the Knicks did what no one else was willing to do? They took a shot. They made him the number one. We kind of have to look more at these last 3 years, including the first year with the lower 3-point volume, because the Dallas numbers are just, he never took 13 shots a game in a season in Dallas. He's never taken under 17 shots a game in a season in New York. It's enough of a difference in role, even though, number 2 guy to number 1 guy isn't a huge jump in your mind, but then all of a sudden you think about a scouting report and
yeah. I think, the jump from good to great is the hardest jump to make in the NBA. The jump from 2 to 1 is harder than the jump from 3 to 2 or 4 to 3 or 4 to 2. Honestly, being the number 1 guy on the scouting report, being the number 1 guy with the ball in your hands every single night, night in and night out, is the hardest thing to do in the sport at the highest level. And I think you have to look at the last 3 years of Jalen Brunson, because there's a direct correlation, right? It's not like he has been in New York for 1 year and he came off of Dallas and he just let it rip, right? And I think there's something to be said about the situation insulating him, which is great for him, defensively insulating him, then surrounding him with better offensive talent, a more spread out offense this past year with Karl Anthony Towns. Now switching head coaches for this next season, it's going to be fascinating to see, does he take another leap up? Because if he takes another leap statistically, we are literally talking about the MVP of the National Basketball Association. And if he does that, then this isn't even a conversation, right? And getting a Mike Brown, which is like the Tom Thibodeau of offense, it's interesting to think, like, is that going to directly impact Jalen Brunson, or is it going to directly impact everything around Jalen Brunson, making it a better team, but not necessarily elevating him statistically? I think it would be in bad faith if I sat here and told you that we cannot heavily weigh the last 3 seasons for Jalen Brunson versus the rest of his career. Because when you look at Devin Booker and you look at when he got the keys versus when it wasn't his team, like it would be unfair to judge him based off of when it wasn't his team. Now, did he have the most playoff success when there was like this battle for who's 1A and 1B with Chris Paul and Devin Booker? Absolutely. But that was like being in the building for those games, watching those games, like that was still Devin Booker's team. This has always been Devin Booker's team. And if I'm going to judge Devin Booker based off of when he was at his best, which is what I'm going to do in this conversation, which preview was not this last season, and I'll be completely upfront and frank about that, I'm going to judge Jalen Brunson off what's his best. And I think if you are to put your flag in the Brunson camp, now is the time to do it, because I think now you have the best argument that you've ever had in his career and in Devin Booker's career. There are certain things to peel back about the Phoenix Suns situation from a team's perspective, which I really want to do here.
That's the direction I was going to go next, was how much do we remove from, hey, I want to go compare Devin Booker and Jalen Brunson's playoff stats from this past season. Why am I getting error 404?
Sure.
Right? Like,
it's a fair argument.
And that's not, but I think the fairer argument is starting out by acknowledging it's just not, you can't just say, oh, well, that means Devin Booker sucks. Like,
yeah,
so what, everyone points to Bradley Beal, but I keep coming back to John Gambadoro tweeting that they were looking to move Ayton for Nurkic to get a real defensive anchor. And it's like, on a math test, when you start out by saying 1 + 2 is 7, and then you do everything else right, they give you that partial credit. We've got to give Devin Booker partial credit here because it's clear that what is going on above him is not, so bad that everyone's been fired 8 times, but also playoff missing with Booker and Durant. This is like the Trout and Ohtani of NBA right now.
Yeah. It's the single biggest disappointment of the NBA last season. Honestly, if you look at the last 10 years in the NBA, it might be the single most disappointing team, period. The highest payroll, not just in the league, of all time in the NBA, right? We're talking all NBA player in Devin Booker, all NBA player, all-time great, top 10 player of all time, even though he doesn't like me, and Kevin Durant, who has gone at me as he's gone at everybody on socials. Bradley Beal, who had been back-to-back 30-point per game scorer, sure in a weaker Eastern Conference, but still an all-star level guard and still somebody that when the Suns traded Chris Paul and Landry Shamet and a boatload of second-round picks and pick swaps for it, universally, it was beloved. This was supposed to be a championship team, and Devin Booker should shoulder some of the responsibility and blame for that, and I will not hide for that. That being said, before we get to Jusuf Nurkic, before we get to this front office, Mike Budenholzer, and I've seen a lot of bad coaching in Phoenix, that nobody's had more coaches since Devin Booker has entered the league in that span of time than Devin Booker. He is the single player who has had the most people calling the plays for him since he's walked into the league about a decade ago. Mike Budenholzer is the worst head coach I've ever seen in my entire life. And he wasn't that way when he left Milwaukee. He wasn't that way when he got fired.
We're not talking about his whole career.
No, I'm talking about his year in Phoenix.
The energy in Phoenix these last 2 years has been so implosive.
I will tell you from a basketball perspective, from what I've heard behind the scenes, from watching this team. We do pre and post game shows every single game. Okay. I was the producer for the show the year beforehand with Frank Vogel, and I was in local sports radio the year before that, when it was the last year of Monty Williams, when they traded for Kevin Durant. Mike Budenholzer was the single worst coach I've ever seen in my entire life. I listened to every single second of his press conferences. I read the transcripts of them. We played them on our shows. I watched the team. I watched the team slowly dissolve. I saw a complete lack of offensive, defensive identity. No champ, like everything that made Mike Budenholzer great in Milwaukee was not present in Phoenix. I was calling for Mike Budenholzer to get fired 1 year into a 5-year contract in January. It was that bad. We're talking approaching Bradley Beal and telling him to be Drew Holiday. That's not who Bradley Beal is. It's not.
Never has been.
We're talking about a guy who
we don't know, but I'm confident saying never will be either. And
no,
that's not a slight to Bradley, who is a talented player, but Drew,
completely different player. Now, if you want to say, I need you to take elements of Drew Holiday's game of playing off of a star like Giannis, that's different than telling a professional basketball player he needs to be somebody else. We're talking about somebody that reportedly didn't speak to Yusuf Nurkic for months before he got traded. We're talking about somebody that reportedly told Devin Booker to tone it down, to stop talking as much, when he's actually been lamented for the opposite, which is people saying that he's not a leader, right? I am convinced that the Phoenix Suns, roster-wise, were not nearly as bad of a team as they should have been last year. But when you have Mike Budenholzer unceremoniously benching your best point-of-attack defender in rookie Ryan Dunn, who has shown an immense growth offensively through half of his first season, to literally ice him out and stick him on the bench when your stars are yelling at you in game that you need somebody to defend. Literally, Kevin Durant turns to him in game against Dallas and goes, "You need somebody who can defend." And Mike Budenholzer refused to play him until there were enough injuries that he had to. This guy ruined the Phoenix Suns last year. Now, would they have been a championship team? No. They wouldn't have. The deficiencies on the margins of a Tyus Jones, a Mason Plumlee, regression of Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Bradley Beal, for all of his talent, was not fitting. Mike Budenholzer fumbled that situation.
We're in the era of the play-in, which...
They missed the play-in.
Which, yeah.
Like, and I'm telling you, to watch that unravel... and by the way, when Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were on the court this year, they won at a 47-win pace together.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, they're still good.
And they missed the play-in.
KD is going to go be good in Houston. You know,
he is.
like he's going to go be great. Amen Thompson is a really crazy fit with him. And when you think about those two, you know, how they both just love hoop. Those are two guys that just love what happens in that between those 94 feet. And they've got like these polar opposite games. Explosive, sneaky, you know, defender, jump shooter. Like, I think they're going to fit like peanut butter and jelly, my guy. And it's going to be fun for us to watch, but from a distance, right? I want to take your Budenholzer point and I'm not doing the thing where it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, my, my goldfish died. Oh, mine too yesterday. Yeah. Like, sure. No, I'm letting you say what you're saying.
Yeah. Give me more context on your side of things.
But I want to provide a Thibodeau note, and it's just two things. One, the Knicks front office never, ever got to the point while he was coaching the team that they were like, this is so bad, we need to fire him. They never, ever forced him at the start of a season or before 20 games of a season had elapsed. They always let him start. First 20 games, you do what you got to do. Then, if it's not working, only if it's not working, let our analytics guys cook a little bit, right? Part of the reason Tom Thibodeau was fired was during the series against Boston, the Knicks were up, and the front office suggested mildly that he start Mitchell Robinson in place of Josh Hart, who... I've been using the pizza analogy with Josh, you know, where it's like everyone likes pizza. Everyone can eat 2, maybe 3 slices of pizza. If you look like me, or if you are me, you're eating 4. But Tibbs was like forcing you to eat 8 slices of pizza or have nothing. And it's like, I'm going to throw the pizza up. It's Josh Hart is getting beat backdoor. Josh Hart is getting out hustled. Just let that sit, right? Because he's playing 45 minutes a game. This is insanity by definition, that whole proverbial this and that. Here's the stat that I really wanted to bring up, though, in the second part of my Thibodeau point. Because things like Brunson's three-point volume getting up, that's the analytics department in the offseason. Things like Brunson getting trusted to just go make clutch plays. And you know, he's missed his fair share of game-winning attempts. He also just had a series ender on, speaking of Amen Thompson, Ausar Thompson, who's arguably a better defender today and going forward. You know, like a series-ending 3, like a Dame Lillard-style 3, and everyone complains that he's too little, and everyone just is awed at these kids that are 6'8" and can jump out the gym. And he crossed him into next week. It's like Brunson, it makes the tweaks, whatever. But this past season, in the regular season, 98% of the time, that Jalen and Carl were on the floor together, one of Josh Hart or Precious Achua was also on the floor. So
Man.
you talked earlier about the Knicks playing a little more spaced out. They did not. Like, I'm not even here to tell you, I don't know about that. Ooh, they did a little bit, but not so. Just straight up did not. Like, Mitchell Robinson was out a lot of the year in the regular season, and they would just start Precious Achua so that Deuce McBride could run the bench unit.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, it gets to the point where, now you have Brunson trying to make things work with Towns at the 4, but the 5 is someone who can't make layups or like it was odd. And the last thing I'll say, and there's pun intended here because it was the way that I got it across to Knick fans most easily. It was like once I pointed it out, they couldn't stop noticing it. And I have to give credit to James L. Edwards III at The Athletic, who was the first one to put a clip out of like, hey, this happens like 8 times a game. Jalen Brunson, screen with Karl Anthony Towns, and Cat pops. Shocker, right? He pops out behind the 3-point line. Brunson takes the screen and drives in. What does Cat do? 8 times out of 10, he's 4 feet behind Jalen, crashing the glass.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the guy who looked into national television and said, I'm the greatest shooting big man of all time. Whether he is or he isn't is one thing. He said that on national TV on purpose into a camera. That guy isn't crashing the glass 8 times out of 10. I'm sorry. That's just not. When I asked Tom Thibodeau about this midseason, I said Karl has half the screen assists since the All-Star break than he did before it. He has half the points off screen assists since the All-Star break than he did before it. I was asked to define a screen assist, and when I did, I was told my data was wrong. So there's no war in Bossing say. Like that's what we were doing in the press room when it came to this stuff. And that's not to say that I don't understand why Tom Thibodeau answers questions that way, why he feels the need, because the media really, like, genuinely, there are people that are just out to get him. And so he kind of does have to play defense. Also, not that I think it's a problem like that needs to be addressed tomorrow morning, that Leon Rose never addresses the media. But when that happens, your coach becomes your only spokesperson.
Sure.
So Tibbs got tired of the media quick because they're asking him about trades and contract extensions and what the tampering charges. Who's the only person they can interview about that? We can interview on the beat is Tibbs. So we do. All that said, my point is just, for all the improvement that Jalen Brunson has shown in 3 years with the New York Knicks, there has not been, forget a season, forget a playoff series, there has not been a week of regular season basketball where in all 3 or 4 games that week, the Knicks deployed, not the whole game, but just deployed a 5-out lineup. Yeah. This has not happened. And Jalen Brunson is maybe, you think Steph, you think Don, you think someone like Book, like KD. He's one of the first 10 guys that should come to mind with who would really thrive in 5-out.
Yeah.
And Karl Anthony Towns is objectively employed by the same team that Brunson is, and they didn't play 5-out. So yeah, I'm not saying, hey, that's the magic key that's going to unlock a championship for you. Look, Boston did it. But like, more so it's being able to play every kind of offense. And the Knicks never showed that they were able to play 5-out. I think they can. But, Michael Scott said that Wayne Gretzky said you miss 99% of the shots you don't take. Like, they weren't taking those shots.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is because I will definitively stand on the fact, and this is, I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but that Devin Booker has been in a worse situation, and it's hard to say because he has probably the second best player on both teams, like Kevin Durant.
I agree with you right now,
right? But like, even with Frank Vogel, like Frank Vogel coached laps around Mike Budenholzer, still got fired after his first year. Jalen Brunson is incredibly impressive in a variety of things. And to be a hub of offense at that size, like you mentioned, with the footwork, the core and lower body strength that he has, to be a force in the paint, to be able to increase his playmaking while he's also increasing his volume, while being coached by an old school defensive first coach who had everybody questioning some of the stuff that he was doing, to the point that he got fired after making it to the conference finals for a variety of reasons, and then can replace with basically his antithesis with an offensive coach, and Mike Brown, who's like, that's his calling card. Jalen Brunson being able to do what he did in that is wildly impressive. I also believe that while maybe they didn't maximize him offensively, I do believe that a lot of his defensive deficiencies had been covered up greatly by my former friend, not actually friend, but our former player, one of our twins, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. I mean, you talk about playing Mitch Robinson
might be the single most important to this.
And to have a team that is focused on that, when the Phoenix Suns' main problem this year was defense. And I will say this was, eye test and statistically speaking, the worst defensive season of Devin Booker's prime. Like, again, I think this is the best time for Brunson supporters to make the argument, and I won't get mad at you if that's like heart of hearts right now, Jalen Brunson's a better player than Devin Booker. I will disagree with you, but at the same time, I will just be like, I'm not going to get mad at you.
You kind of got to just chalk it up to like, it's a what have you done for me recently business.
Sure. And that's completely fair. But then I also think, like, when we look at extended parts here, when Devin Booker has been in an insulated situation, right? Let's talk about the playoffs. When Kevin Durant was there with Monty Williams, they lost to the Nuggets in 6 games. They actually take the most games off of the Nuggets, who eventually end up beating the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals and becoming the NBA champions. No team took the Denver Nuggets farther that year than Chris Paul, who got injured, DeAndre Ayton, who got injured, and then Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, who were on the same team, which is wild to talk about those 4 on the same team at the same time, because it doesn't really feel like that ever happened. During that stretch, when Devin Booker was still not super well insulated, because in that Denver series, they were playing Terrence Ross significant minutes because of the injuries, right? DeAndre Ayton was out because of a rib contusion, and when he played, he barely even hustled. There's an infamous clip of Nikola Jokic just grabbing the boards. So that's that series, right? Against the Clippers and then the Nuggets that year. And I am not exaggerating here. Devin Booker put up Michael Jordan statistics on both sides of the ball. I'm literally talking. No hyperbole. You can go back and check the actual stats on both ends of the court. He was doing something that only one other player in NBA history had ever done, and that was Michael Jordan. I'm talking stocks. I'm talking offensive game, points per game, assists per game, rebounds per game. Like, he hit this peak that was quite literally MJ-like. Probably the closest. It was a short playoff run. I think it was 5 games against the Clippers and then 6 games against the Nuggets. But during those games, he played like Michael freaking Jordan. And that was with a mismatched squad surrounding him and Kevin Durant. And that was, objectively speaking, with the best coach that he had with Kevin Durant and Monty Williams, who ran his course as far as behind the scenes stuff with the Jay Crowder, with the DeAndre Ayton. Now, I understand that was a long time ago in the modern world, where it's, what have you done for me? Not lately. What have you done for me right now? And if that's where you're going to decide the difference between Jalen Brunson and Devin Booker, more power to you. If I'm drafting players that I want on a team in a playoff series, Devin Booker and Jalen Brunson are probably going within similar 3 picks to each other.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 or 3.
I'm picking Devin Booker first because the defensive ceiling that I have seen him reach, even not in an ideal defensive scenario, is leaps and bounds above Jalen Brunson. Leaps and bounds. And that's eye test, that's stats, that's putting yourself in the right situation at the right time, while also acknowledging that defensively speaking, Jalen Brunson was a better basketball player defensively than Devin Booker this past season. And that's a tough thing to say if you're Devin Booker, when you look at who Jalen Brunson is size-wise and who you are size-wise.
Yeah. The one thing I was going to say anecdotally that'll support that is in the Boston series, Tom Thibodeau, one adjustment he did make was he started switching. He is a drop demon. And there are some Knicks fans that kind of get tricked into thinking that Tibbs is the only coach in the league that runs drop because of the way the media talks about it. It's just that he's addicted to it. It's not that he is the only person that does it. It's that he does it, what some would say, in excess.
Mike Budenholzer is also on that list, by the way.
Yeah, that's why I kind of fleshed that out a little bit. I thought you might relate a little bit, just a tad. Man, Jalen Brunson was getting switched onto Brown and onto Tatum and just like straight up holding his own, not getting steals, not generating turnovers. I'm not saying he was blocking shots. I'm saying he forced them when they tried to drive. He bodied up when they tried pulling back and creating some space, with the step back or something. He was right up in them. Like, he played them well, not elite, not poorly. Well is really good given his size. And then only because you brought it up, just this past postseason, Brunson like really got up there with Michael Jordan with regard to like some of the more niche playoff stats. So one fun one, Jalen Brunson opened the 2025 playoffs with 4 straight 30-point games. The last guy to do that was Jordan in 1998. So, every NBA player can drop 40. NBA stars can drop 25 every night. Jalen Brunson, 30 for only just the first 4 games, but in the playoffs, 30, 30, 30, 30. It's impressive. The one that really gets me though, and Sam Quinn wrote about this for CBS, and I love Sam's stuff because you can just tell he likes basketball. So it makes it fun for me to consume. After Game 5, win against the Pacers, there's this milestone he hit, and the 30-10-5 club, right? Entering the 2025 postseason, the only 2 players ever to reach 30 points and 5 assists in 10 different playoff games in one playoff run. So 30 points and 5 dimes in 10 games in one playoff run. It was a very short list. The list was 2 players. It was MJ and LJ. You can guess. Yes. Larry Johnson. No. LeBron James, Michael Jordan.
Grandmama.
Only 2 ever. 4 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a 34-point, 8-assist performance on his way to clinching the Western Conference Finals MVP trophy, went ahead and added himself to those books. But Jalen Brunson did too in Game 5 against the Indiana Pacers. So that list doubled this season from MJ and LeBron to MJ, LeBron, Shai, and Brunson. Does that mean that those are the 4 best players of all time? Probably not. Does that mean that we're seeing the NBA, which people are calling solvable now, which I would say is more like we all have pattern recognition and like there's always been patterns. People are silly. It's okay.
Just the way that some people talk about basketball like that, when it's like basketball is made, like here's the thing. And I hope that, the generation, like our generation, the generation upcoming, does not treat the new generation of basketball like this generation has, to pretend like basketball has regressed, because it hasn't. Like, basketball is getting more complex. Even though people might not like where it's going, it is getting more complex. The players are getting better. The players are getting more athletic, and you can only play your competition. And that by no means is meant to discredit a Michael Jordan or a Larry Bird or a Kareem or a Bill Russell, because you can only play who's across from you. But holistically, the NBA is not solvable. The NBA has not been solved. Efficiency numbers and stuff can kind of make some conversations boring. And I think that, that always needs to work in tandem with the eye test. But those stats from Jalen Brunson are extremely relevant. And, I hate to like pull this specific card, but I do think that it's really important. And this is just an undisputable fact. There is a vast difference in the top to bottom level of talent in the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. Now, if we're talking top tier, okay, if we're talking the best of the best, like top 3 teams, the East will always hold a candle to the West because there's always the elite of the elite. We're talking Boston's, we're talking Cleveland's. I think this year we're going to be talking about the New York Knicks as the best regular season team in the end. And maybe not, maybe in the NBA, it depends on how the Eastern Conference plays out, but in the East, I think they'll have a better record than Cleveland in the regular season. That is how high I am on the Knicks. That's how high I am on Jalen Brunson, right? I think that when you look at, because I can go through Devin Booker's stats this season and Jalen Brunson's stats, I will guarantee you that if Devin Booker was playing an Eastern Conference schedule every single night, which includes Western Conference teams, but is a vast difference when you have to play Golden State when they're at their peak every single night when you're upcoming as a rookie, right? Or when you're this year and you have to play the Thunder and the Rockets and the Nuggets, and literally the bad teams are good. Portland is good. San Antonio is good. And Sacramento. But like, when you have to go through that, and when you look at the playoff runs that Devin Booker has been through, whether it is being the single leading scorer in a first ever playoff run when he made it to the NBA Finals in 2021, passing Rick Barry before his run was even over, right? Or when you talk about some of these big time moments that he stepped up in, these averaging 30 plus points per game, for a series, whatever it might be, Devin Booker is doing that in an objectively tougher conference. And that by no means is meant to discredit Jalen Brunson, but when we're talking about margins, and that's what we're talking about here, I literally think that this is like a 1%, 2%, 3% difference in total credit to Jalen Brunson. 5 years ago, this would be laughed at.
You would be laughed at. Yeah, you'd be laughed at.
And you have to get full credit to him for undeniably performing and putting himself in these scenarios.
Keeps showing up in big moments too.
And I think that's the biggest, to me, I think the biggest flag to plant in Jalen Brunson Island right now is the clutch stuff. Because watching him these playoffs, man, and like Devin Booker is a good clutch player. You look at anybody's clutch numbers and they're going to be low because clutch is harder to score than regular.
It's just not,
and people using that.
Kobe is actually,
LeBron,
thanks,
right?
Man. It's
so in bad faith. Yeah. But Jalen Brunson had my jaw on the floor.
Yeah,
multiple times. And against that Detroit team, and to do that with the core strength, the footwork, the handle, the mental, to be able to do that in a city like New York. And I'm sure you feel like this, but it's people laugh at it from the outside, but it's different. Like it's different up there.
Look at the Yankees and Mets right now. Just straight up, like both huge payrolls, absolutely crumbling under the pressure of everyone thinks they should be playing better, and they keep not winning the World Series in August. So the whole sky is falling. And now, like, they said it until they believed it. Now they're actually playing like they're minor league teams. And it's like this pressure. No one is trying to say that teams deserve like an honorary banner for playing in a big market. The Lakers are the Lakers and the Knicks are the Knicks. And there are lots of things that are great that come with that the pressure and the media scrutiny, that's all the cost for the luxury, right? But I will say it says a lot to me that in a season where Nikola Jokic did not win most valuable player, and we know how NBA voters can be sometimes where they're like, oh, well, he didn't win this one, so I'll just vote him for this award, or I'll just vote him for the, like, Jalen Brunson missed most of the end of the season, and Nikola Jokic, like, came really close to overtaking him for clutch player of the year. And at the end of the year, when the voters looked at it and Brunson came back and reached the game minimum, helped the Knicks to a clutch win, like, they were like, we don't care that he missed all those games. Like, this guy is comically clutch to the point where Mike Breen, like, is calling him Captain Clutch, and it keeps working. Like, he keeps being like, well, Knicks are down 1, 2 minutes left. It's time to see, Captain Clutch, man or mouse. What do we got? And he just kept coming through.
I think with Jalen Brunson, I would say as of right now in this second, he is the best clutch player in the NBA. And that's full credit to him. And I think that is probably, if we were talking where Jalen Brunson is better than Devin Booker right now, that is the one thing that I will say wholeheartedly, like, I will concede that. Now, that being said, there are things about Devin Booker, and we're like 40 minutes in, and I think it's good. We've gotten into context. We've gotten into everything. We understand that, like, this is all in good faith. I got to bring some stuff for my guy Book, right?
Absolutely.
Because Devin Booker as a playmaker averaged less assists per game this season than Jalen Brunson. 7.1 assists per game to 7.3 assists per game for Jalen Brunson. That being said, I will plant my flag and I will go highlight for highlight, tape for tape, film for film. Devin Booker is a better playmaker than Jalen Brunson. He is a better passer. Devin Booker, to me, is the most underrated passer in the NBA. Point blank, period. Most underrated. Not the best. He's not a Jokic. He's not a LeBron. He's not a Chris Paul. But people don't understand, like, the point book stuff is such a point of contention over here in Phoenix. Devin Booker as a point guard is one of the best point guards in the NBA. Devin Booker as a shooting guard is one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. Devin Booker as a passer, he was one of 2 players this season to consistently be flirting in top 10 in points per game and assists per game. Now, he didn't end up there. And I will point to the de-evolution, the regression of the Phoenix Suns post All-Star break as the main reason for that. Devin Booker is a better playmaker than Jalen Brunson. Brunson's good, and he's improved. Absolutely. But Devin Booker led the league in 3-point assists this year. I got to pull up a couple other stats here just for my guy
for posterity. Absolutely.
So he was first in secondary assists per game, first in total 3-point assists, 8th in total assist points created, and 8th in total potential assist points. Still ended up at 11th in assists per game. But during the entire season, he was pretty much flirting with being in that top 10 in points per game and in assists per game. Also on drives, when it came to drives and playmaking off of that, he was 4th in assist to pass percentage, on 11th in drives per game, 16th on assist percentage on drives, but only 31st in total passes. The thing about Devin Booker is that he's making the right play every single time, and he's doing it all on low volume. When he could, and he might this season. Like, I think this is going to be the season.
I was going to say, because we've seen like several pockets where his role has changed, and it's kind of been like he can take the league by storm this year. And there's always just been something, whether it's the defense fell out from under them or guys are missing game. Like, there's always just something. And I'm not confident that it's just his fault. Like, I'm not.
Right. And I will say it's a skill that he's developed, and I've seen, I've watched every single game he's ever played. Like, it's a skill that he has overall developed. And I think he would be averaging, even with Tom Thibodeau, man, I think he'd be averaging north of 8 assists per game if he was on the New York Knicks.
Tibbs would be funneling him the ball. Like, Tibbs would just be telling him to score.
And that's playing with Bradley Beal, with Kevin Durant, with Tyus Jones. Like, Devin Booker this season is the undisputed point guard of this team. He's the undisputed number 1 option. Now, he needs to improve on some things like his 3-point percentage last year. He wasn't good enough. He took a lot of them. He wasn't good enough. He needs to improve on that. His defense, he needs to improve on. But when you don't have a defensive system and you have Jusuf Nurkic protecting the paint, or Nick Richards, Nick Richards was the savior for this team.
These are 2 good centers, by the way. Can I add that just like as a tangent? Like, Nurkic and Richards, like guys with legitimate NBA skills and able to contribute to winning basketball, who were just grossly miscast.
Well, and when Nurkic, the season before with Frank Vogel, was the anchor of a top 15 defense. And Jusuf Nurkic was this piece where the Suns didn't win without him. Now, I will say this individually, Jusuf Nurkic actually did regress a lot as a player when it came to eye test last season. It got to the point where I did not blame Mike Budenholzer for the way that he treated him. But yes, he was miscast as a defensive anchor. He's not a defensive anchor. He also has never been the same since his leg injury. It's sad. He was a monster in Portland before he annihilated his leg. But Devin Booker as a primary playmaker, as a pass-first point guard, I believe is separated from Jalen Brunson. And when given the runway, which I do believe this season, I believe he will average north of 8 assists per game. And when you also look at double teams as well, what I thought was very poignant when it comes to dealing with double teams, Devin Booker demanded the 5th most double teams in the NBA, total double teams at 630. The players above him, Karl Anthony Towns, who had 697, Alperen Şengün, who was 749, Nikola Jokic at 841. Out of all of those players, Devin Booker resulted in the most points resulted for per double team.
Yeah, people like to make fun of him for that one off-season clip. But objectively speaking, like, he's very good at navigating double teams. Jalen Brunson gets double teamed a shit ton too. I think it was Knicks Muse just put out a stat. Not that he like found it, but he went back and found it from a broadcast. Basically, Jalen Brunson in last year's playoffs, there was a game where he was double teamed on 30 plays in a game, which ESPN shouted out, and it's just like that. To me, is both a credit to him and also an indictment on Thibodeau for a lack of adjustment. Like, we can't just be like, oh, well, he was double teamed 30 times, so he's better. Like, I'm just trying to contextualize a little bit. Like, he's depended on that much.
Right. I want to correct myself real quick, because I read this graph wrong. It was not points. It was he had the lowest shot percentage, but one of the higher assist percentage out of double teams. Out of the top 10, he had the third highest assist percentage behind Nikola Jokic and Cade Cunningham, but Cade Cunningham had over 100 less double teams. Jokic is Jokic. He got doubled by far the most in the NBA. Devin Booker, who still averaged 25.6 points per game, shot the ball the lowest percentage of times out of the guys with the top 10 face most double teams at 19.4%. The next lowest as far as how many times or the percentage of shots outside of a double team was Julius Randle, somebody that you are familiar with, at 29.4%. He shot 10% as far as like the percentage of times you're taking a shot out of a double team, fewer than every other player in the top 10, and he still averaged 25.6 points per game, and this guy's getting doubled off the rip. This season, he is going to shoot the ball so much more than he did last season with Kevin Durant and with Bradley Beal. He's going to pass the ball and be the primary initiator out of that so much more than with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And I think the team around him is insulated and better. So I want to correct myself on the scoring side of it, read the wrong side of the chart. I'm not a chart guy. I'm an iTech guy, but I tried.
Hey, your guy KD, right? Who wants to look at graphs?
I saw a tweet that somebody had a TI-84 out and was like, time to watch some basketball. But Devin Booker is extremely efficient out of the double teams. And
love analytics, but those
as a passer, I do believe that's a flag I will plant. As an isolation scorer, statistically speaking, there's one player who is better as far as points per isolation possession in the NBA. It's Kevin Durant. That's the only player who scores more points per isolation possession in the NBA than Devin Booker.
I would have guessed Shea just because of the spacing they have in Oklahoma, to be honest. No
it's
discredit to KD.
And it's a fair guess. But I listen, man, KD, off-court stuff with KD, on-court stuff, complimentary and derogatory in two different ways.
He's gonna be really good in Houston. Look, man, speaking of numbers, I'm gonna throw some up on the screen.
Let's do it.
This is the last 3 years. So this is Jalen Brunson's first season in New York and on. I guess in a way, I kind of just want to talk about what stands out to us here. So the first one at the very top is, well, it's a bit cut off by the logo here, but it's the per game stats in that time. You look at the production and like the efficiency is what really stands out to me. The 3-point shooting, like you were talking about, Devin Booker about 35%, Jalen Brunson about 40% on the same amount of attempts. Roughly same amount of 40 3-point attempts different in 3 seasons. Brunson doesn't play enough more games. He doesn't play so many more. There we go. English is something I'm good at. He doesn't play so many more games that, we're looking at it and being like, oh, wait, this is a problem. Let me dish the logo here so you can see the point per game average is 26.7 versus 26.4. I thought that was a really fun standout stat for me because it's
close.
It's not close. Everything, but if we're just looking at points per game, boy, is it right there.
Yeah.
And you take a look at the advanced stuff, right? Like assist percentage, pretty darn close too. I had more fun seeing how similar these guys were in some of these ways than I did looking for differences. But I will be a little stinker and say win shares per 48, offensive BPM, defensive BPM, VORP. Like it's all in Brunson's favor. And of course, so much of that is team context. How do you try and separate that, man? Like when you look at these numbers on the screen, how do we spent 40 minutes trying to quantify how to separate these numbers on the screen. But this is kind of really what I'm leading up to is how damn close it is.
Well, and it is. And that's why like good hoop discussion is respecting both sides of it. And again, like, and I think I've said this probably like 5 times now where it's like, if you want to take Jalen Brunson, that's your prerogative, right? I don't think you go wrong with taking Jalen Brunson. I think if you project for the rest of their career as well, as far as whose game is going to age better, respectfully speaking to Jalen Brunson and his size, and I'm saying this is Chris Paul's entering, year 45, but like Devin Booker's game projects to age a little bit more gracefully, right? And so like when you're looking at like comprehensively who's the better player, who are you taking? These are things you take into account. But when we look at the last 3 seasons, Devin Booker's team, and by the way, who's on the team? It is Devin Booker. right? And Suns fans get mad because they say, oh, well, some KD fans say we don't blame Booker enough. Some Booker fans say we blame Booker too much. He's a part of this team, so he does deserve the share for those numbers being in the dip. That being said, eye test wise and watching him, Devin Booker is a better player than what all the stats are saying over the last 3 years. And I say that as somebody who has watched this guy every single game, and maybe that's bias in me, right? Like, whose jersey do I have behind me? Like, I have Devin Booker's jersey, right? And I'm human, right? So maybe I overlook some of the flaws, but I think acknowledging that defensively he needs to be better, acknowledging that when it comes to making your threes, he's finally upped his volume. It's something we've been asking for years. Same thing with Brunson, right? Up your volume, up your volume, up your volume. He didn't hit as many as he should have this year. Like, it was a down year for him offensively. A down year for him offensively, averaging 25.6 points per game, 7.1 assists per game on still very, very efficient true shooting percentage. But I look at those stats and I say the numbers will probably tell you over the last 3 years that Jalen Brunson has been a better basketball player. Yeah. Numbers do not define a singular basketball player, and we know team that. Context as well. So again, it's so close. If we're doing top 10, top 12, top 15 players, I have them. And no matter how you break down the game, I have them within a couple of spots of each other, if not literally back to back. I just am going to bet on the guy who has been doing it for longer, who has been doing it in some rougher situations, and who I believe now entering year 11 for him is going to firmly entrench himself in a holy crap, he's averaging what? Yeah. Because he's going to just get the keys this year, and I think he's ready to prove people wrong. So I'm betting on that as well.
Like 32.7.
I think he's going to average over 30 points per game if he's and again, hopefully he stays healthy. That is also another thing.
Players, absolutely.
With Devin Booker is he's had lingering hamstring and lower body injuries over the last couple of years. And
that 2023 season when he only played 53 kind of stands out as like definitely the lowest of his career.
Right. And he's been surrounded by players that have also been injury prone as well, in Kevin Durant and in Bradley Beal and even in Yusuf Nurkic a little bit.
And that's part of what happens when a front office chooses to have a bunch of players on that side of 30 be Booker's supporting cast. So
no continuity there, right?
Yeah, that's part of it to me too. Is like it's not all not Book. Like we have to.
He has to take some of the blame. Like he had, and again, that's why I do like. It's why I do think that the argument for Brunson right now, it's a completely fair one. But I think that if we were to have this conversation 365 days from now, or if I were to put that tweet out 365 days from now, assuming that Jalen Brunson, upticks some of his numbers as well under a Mike Brown offense, but maybe Mike Brown's offense elevates everybody else. Well, Jalen Brunson is maybe more impactful on the court, but statistically speaking,
with fewer points per game because he's not so ISO heavy,
which might make you guys a better team. Like for me, I think in 365 days, the Devin Booker side and the Devin Booker argument is going to be a lot stronger. And again, that's projection, right? I could be sitting here and I could be wrong, right? 100%. But that I don't think I will be.
I want to point to the Darko and some EPM action too, because I think it comes down to the crux of the argument for Brunson being better, which is that it's twofold. One, it's not just this past season, it's the past two where he has really stepped ahead in a significant enough way to matter. And the other side of it being, we know Booker is a better playmaker. Brunson is that much better of a scorer. And that's where you really need the nuance because, yes, he's been the number one, so there's more defensive attention, and Thibodeau funnels him the ball. So then is he scoring so much that the efficiency's down, but that's how the team is winning? And that, like, was that any of that necessary? Is also a big part of the debate. Just looking at EPM, 2023, Jalen Brunson, positive 3.9. 96th percentile offensive EPM. Devin Booker that year, positive 4.8, 98th percentile offense. Like a strong grade on its own and relative to the rest of the league. But the next year, 2024, Jalen Brunson, 99th percentile, positive 5.7. Booker, positive 4.4. 98th percentile. And this last season, Brunson, positive 4.3. So kind of what I was saying earlier with those Hart and Achua minutes going along with those Towns and Brunson minutes, despite you saying at the top of the show they have a lineup and a roster more conducive to Brunson's success. He had a lower offensive impact, a lower usage rate, played the same amount of minutes per game. This last year, Brunson positive 4.3, Booker positive 3.4. So, for me, I think it's Brunson, yes, a not easy defensively to scheme with in the playoffs. I work at WFAN, and Brandon Tierney was talking about how he's thinking at this Knicks playoff run that you just can't have Brunson and Towns on the court at the same time. Like, for the rest of the Knicks playoff run, they need to stagger them as much as possible because they're winning those minutes where it's one or the other, but they're losing the minutes where it's both. And my counter was always, what if they played both but without Hart and Robinson? Because it's
what if they use them better, right?
It's two non-shooters along with two non-defenders. No, that doesn't work. You got 4 guys on the court who have glaring weaknesses, and 2 of them are the same as 2 of the that's too much going on,
Sure.
But I think that's what it comes down to for me is you take a look at the last couple seasons, right? If you want to just talk playoffs, Brunson's efficiency is terrible compared to Booker's, right? Brunson in the last 3 seasons, shooting a 5.10 EFG, Booker with a 6.27 in the playoffs. Brunson shooting 33.6% from 3 in the last 3 seasons in the playoffs. Booker 46.9, and of course that's only 2 seasons for Devin because I'm doing last 3 years,
including a sweep, which was just gross basketball from the Suns.
in the playoffs, Booker 6.9 assists, Brunson 6.8. It is there, man. And like I said earlier, I had so much fun seeing where these guys were similar. When you look at the playoff totals, right? Like the Suns in the last 3 years are 6-9 in 15 games. The Knicks 23-19 in 42 games. That's a part of the Brunson argument too.
Agreed.
But I wanted to spend the start of the show contextualizing so that I could say that is not the most important part. I'm not just sitting here being like, well, the Knicks are in the playoff. Like, I think it's that Brunson is a better enough scorer that it outdoes both the playmaking and the defensive gaps because he played up on defense. And if Booker keeps playing down, and I'll tell you right now, as someone that watches not half as much as Booker as you, but a lot of Booker and has throughout his career, he played like he wasn't doing his best almost on purpose, whether it was subconscious or not. And I would think subconscious, just the vibes are down. But I'm not inside his head. I can just see the film where it looks like he's not trying as hard as usual. That's not supposed to be like pejorative or accusatory. It's supposed to be like, hey, I'm the guy talking about how Jordan Clarkson is out of Utah, and now there's something maybe that he'll be playing for that's a little different. Like, this is a real thing to me. So I don't know how you feel about all that too.
Devin Booker has to be better on defense this year. It's a fact. He played way worse than he should be. That I can't dispute. Right. And to say that Jalen Brunson is a better scorer than Devin Booker, I will say it's on Devin Booker to prove you wrong, because I do think he can. When you talk about efficiency and as far as like funneling and shot chucking and whatever, Devin Booker could average the most shots per game in this
first 5 years of his career.
Like he could average the most shots per game in this league, and he would still have a good percentage, and his percentage would go down almost to his own detriment. Devin Booker just loves the game of basketball and won't step on it. And I'm not saying that Jalen Brunson doesn't, but I think Jalen Brunson's, and maybe this is a mark towards or against Brunson, however you want to say it, I think his mentality is more like, okay, I'm just gonna be the guy. Where Devin Booker is like, how can I take this team and elevate it as a whole? I think this year there's no choice for Devin Booker. He's had the choice before, whether it was with Chris Paul or whether it was with Kevin Durant or Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. Devin Booker, point blank period, needs to be the guy on the Suns this year and needs to put his foot down and say, like, I have arrived. And you know who needs to make sure that he does that is Jordan Ott, and he needs to make sure that the ball is in his hands and he's taking a majority of the shots, right? He needs to be taking more shots he did last year. Shoot out of double teams.
That make it easy.
Yeah. So the final, I guess my final thing and my final question to you is this. And this is kind of where I broke it down. If I offered you right now let's like contracts aside, because Jalen Brunson's contract is the biggest steal in the NBA, and good for you guys for being able to get it. Okay. If I could give you for the rest of their careers, starting right now, if I can give the New York Knicks Devin Booker over Jalen Brunson, try to put the fandom aside, who would you pick?
Them both being 28 makes this really fun. I have to start there.
Do you think the Knicks would be a better team this year if Devin Booker was on that team instead of Jalen Brunson?
I think this next season, no. Because they have really built around Brunson's specific skill set now at this point. You did make a fascinating point earlier when you said that this past season, you think they would have done better, with Booker over Brunson. I can understand that. I am curious about this. I'll say first, the Knicks declined the offer, not just because Brunson is Leon Rose's literal godson, but also because of what it means to the city and to the franchise that Jalen Brunson chose to go to New York, took on the challenge, and then everyone was like, oh, cool, he's our number one for now, and then he'll be the number two when we get a real star. Jalen Brunson was like, hey, actually, I'm the real star, and everyone else is going to fit in around me. Yeah. Watch this. And the first thing he said to the media was, I'm not your savior. I'm not the savior of the Knicks. I'm not going to be and then he proceeded to go on for 900 days and just be the savior of the Knicks.
And the Suns say no to that too, right? And I think it's respectful to both franchises, or it's like the same thing about Book. Book is the Suns guy. He's been there
for too long.
He's the Suns guy. He's the Damian Lillard of Phoenix.
Yes.
He just is.
My question going into this next season to ask you is, Brunson is 100% more of a guy who says, I'm going to get myself going first. But that's what the tape says he says. Do you think that was a Tom Thibodeau, Jalen, go get your game off and the pieces will fall into place around you? Because I remember first round against Cleveland, I had an issue with that. First round against Detroit, I had an issue with that. Those were 3 years apart, 2 years apart. So for me, my final question for you is, the shot first nature of Jalen's game that objectively influences how we view him, and Booker having more of a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. I think back to the Bucks finals where they said, Devin, score all you want because we can contain everyone else if you're scoring and not passing. And I kind of think about how that's just how teams guard Jalen right now. And he still just does the Michael Jordan scoring thing and the 30 points, 5 assists. So do you think Mike Brown, who had a defensive reputation with Golden State, who Jay Triano ran his offense when he was in Sacramento, Jordy Fernandez ran the defense. Somehow Jordy got all the credit for the offense. And
that's how it works.
Jordy's he's one of my favorite head coaches in the league, bar none. I love what he did. What he was doing in Brooklyn last year, he deserves so much credit for how he attacked every day. But that was a Triano offense in Sacramento. Brown is like the kind of defensive guy. I think the flexibility, the offensive versatility, the listening to the front office ability is what makes him the choice over Thibodeau. Do you see Mike Brown putting Jalen Brunson in a situation where the playmaking is what grows, or do you think that leap comes scoring again? If there is one,
I don't know. Earlier, I don't know if there's one. The scoring leap would mean 30 plus points per game.
Yeah. It was same thing with Book.
Right. I think that this is going to be more of a team oriented thing with Mike Brown. Like when I say like the antithesis of Tibbs, like I do mean like offensive, like offensively not stuck in his ways. He's going to be adaptable. He's going to be more modern, with his offense. And like you said, listening to the front office means listening to the analytics guys, means listening to the evolution of the game. Right. So that's like the antithesis with Mike Brown of what Tom Thibodeau did. I do believe it's going to be spread out a little bit more. I think Mikal is going to take a little bit of jump. I think OG is poised as he enters his prime to take that jump.
Mikal is going to get to the free throw line a lot. Yeah. He's going to score a lot. He's going to make
Cat's going to be utilized better. And the thing is, that might mean that Brunson's points per game go up. I think realistically what I see in this next season is that for Devin Booker, he's going to take a little bit more of what Jalen Brunson has had to do the last couple of years, and he's going to take that into his game. And for Jalen Brunson, he's going to have to take a little bit of what Devin Booker had done with the offensive talent that he was surrounded with the last couple of years and take that into his game. And that's why I think that this upcoming season is extremely fascinating for both players, and why I think that no matter what side you're on, you have to acknowledge that the other side has legitimate claims and arguments.
Yeah.
Right. Like there is no definitive answer in this. It's just like what I think
duo of players too
versus what you think. And it's like, at the end of the day, this will be a fun debate 10, 15 years from now. I'm going to roll with Book, but that's me. Like, I want people to let me know. And like, you listen, I've been called worse things. You can call me stupid, whatever you want. You can follow me on Twitter and whatnot. And tell me what you think about this, because nah and yeah and for sure or no way are not arguments here, right? Like, I want to talk about basketball.
That's why I went right to asking you to podcast with me, and I thank you for doing so. Erik, we've got a lot to follow this upcoming season. Two 28-year-old NBA superstars who we found may have a little more in common than they do that differentiates them than we thought. The Suns and the Knicks, both in for big years for different reasons. For Phoenix, can they land on their feet post Durant? For New York, can they reach the top of the mountain? It always felt like playoffs or bust for the Knicks, and that debate was answered by October when they were 0-10 to start the season. Now it's actually unironically championship or bust for the New York Knicks, who, like you said earlier in the show, fired the head coach who took them to their first conference finals in 25 years. My viewers know I'll have the coverage of this Knicks season covered from baseline to baseline. But if they're interested in following the PHNX Suns, where can they do so, my friend?
Man, you're right. It's going to be an interesting season for the Suns. Ironically enough, it's going to be probably the worst team that they've had, but it's going to be the most fun team that they had.
And what you find out this year is going to matter a lot.
Yes. And I think if you want to follow Devin Booker and keep tabs on him, and I try not to toot our own horn, but there is no better place to be a Suns fan than PHNX Suns. So PHNX Sports is a daily media platform. We're part of the All City Network. So if you've seen All NBA with Adam Mares and Tim Legler, we're under the same umbrella as them. We have guys like Legs on all the time. And, we talk about basketball as a whole. We have some really great basketball minds. And Stephen Prejean Gardner, who covers the NBA, the WNBA, Gerald Bourguet.
He's so good.
He's so good, dude.
Both of them are so good at their jobs. I just should add.
I think that, selfishly speaking, I think that we have one of the best crews just of actually talking about the game and talking about basketball. We've had lots of non-Suns fans stick around. We have Houston fans during the Durant saga and all the rumors who stuck around. Spurs fans. We've had Knicks fans stick around because I did some stuff with Andrew Claudio, when the Knicks were playing the Suns, and some Knicks fans have stuck around. It's a show about celebrating and enjoying basketball while still covering the league on a daily basis. We've been talking about Trae Young a lot this week because of rumors and whatnot that's gone out there. So you can follow us on socials at PHNX_Suns. Obviously, we're going to be Suns based, but we try to wrap the whole league in there. We're live on YouTube at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So as of right now, before all the daylight savings and whatnot, it's going to be 6 p.m. Over on the East Coast in New York for you guys. We do it's on audio platforms, it's on YouTube platforms, and we also cover all Arizona sports. So Cardinals, Diamondbacks, Mercury, ASU, U of A. We have you covered with that. Plus, in the All City Network, we have DNVR, CHGO, DLLS, PHLY. If you want to hate on any of them, because especially PHLY, I get it. It makes not because they're great. They do great stuff over there, but I can't ask New York people to support PHLY, but if you want to give them a little roughhousing and a little good New York Philly rivalry, you could always do that. But always talk ball with me, man. I'll talk ball about anything. I follow the NBA, so at ERIKRUBY on socials. One big mantra that we have is that in a space so full of crap, support the people who have the content that you want to watch, right? Your clicks matter, your views matter. As a consumer, and we're all consumers, even if we're hosts as well, of sports and media content, we dictate what rises and what falls. So support people like Kris, support people that actually talk about the sport in a meaningful way that want to grow the game. And if you want to add one of those guys to your list to talk ball with at ERIKRUBY, I'm always happy to do that.
I love it, man. You sell yourself. Appreciate you a ton for coming on the show. I had a blast just talking hoop with you, and I definitely would love to resume this conversation. Maybe we'll just talk some Suns basketball otherwise during the season. But I will say, you said 365 days from now, so I'm gonna go put August 10th, 2026
Write it
in the
down.
calendar, man, because we got to revisit. Go check out the PHNX Suns show, everything that Erik does. You can just tell it's someone who cares. So that'll be my vote of confidence. Erik, kind words from you, very much appreciated as well, my man. Stay tuned right here on the All Things NBA from A to Z podcast, presented as always by Ball is Life. For more NBA talk, a little bit of an off-season hiatus, but we're back and we're better than ever. I feel unconfident saying that because I feel like the co-host should be here if I say that. It's not just me. I'm not just better than ever. We're back and better than ever. I'm just happening to get things started. We'll see you soon.